Hello, everyone. This is Arcacia with Patch Homeschoolers. That is our new name. We were formerly Apache, and now we are Patch. And I'm here tonight with our Family Spotlight. So Family Spotlight, what are we doing here with Patch? We're interviewing a homeschooling family that's part of Patch, and we're interviewing getting a new family every single month. And we've been enjoying just sitting down, asking some questions, getting to know each other, and just finding out a little bit about their homeschooling lifestyle and their homeschooling journey. It's been a great way to connect, and it's been a great way to encourage our new homeschoolers too. So tonight we have Gary and Marie Unsicker. Welcome, guys. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. Hello.
So we're just going to kind of get started with a few questions here and kind of get to know one another. So tell us a little bit about your guys' homeschooling journey, how it started, and a little bit about your guys' family life.
Okay, I will start. And we have 7 children, and now their ages 28 down to 13. Currently, we homeschool a boy that's a junior in high school, and then my son that's in 7th grade attends a private school. About 11 years ago, so let's see, that means we started homeschooling in 1998 with
Wow.
my oldest daughter in kindergarten. About 11 years ago, my first husband passed away. So that was in 2010, and I remarried 6 years ago, which was 2015, and then I moved to the Peoria area. Previously, I was about an hour and a half from here, so I did know about Apache at that time, and I attended a couple. I didn't come real regularly, but I did come some. Right now, I also have 1 child in college and 3 that are married, and they keep me busy.
That they do. So Gary, what do you do for a living?
I farm and just try and help with her as much as I can too.
Yeah, that's encouraging to have our husbands come and give us that support. I know I definitely appreciate it when my husband offers that support for me. So it's definitely encouraging, because a lot of times as homeschooling moms, we can feel like we're doing it all ourselves. And just sometimes having the dads or the husbands to come alongside and say, you know what, you're doing a good job. And, you know, I appreciate what you're doing for our family has always been encouraging to me. So I'm sure Marie appreciates that too, Gary.
I hope to try and help as much as I can.
So what have you guys found has been the most difficult part of homeschooling?
For me, I would say balancing the housework with the schooling. I like to work, so just making the priority to be school on school days. And also I would add having enough of a schedule for the children, and I'm by no means a super scheduled person, but just enough of a schedule. I know some of my kids need that more than others. And you know, enough of a schedule that they know what to expect so they can concentrate better. And so that's definitely been a challenge for me also. That's all I can think of right now.
Well, I noticed that you mentioned about how our kids are a little bit different, and that's the great thing about homeschooling, is that we can tailor our homeschooling to each individual kid and how they learn and what the child needs. You mentioned that you have some that do really well with schedules, and probably others that are not so much on the schedule part, and we can actually tailor our homeschooling journey to meet each individual child's needs, which is the great thing about homeschooling. I love.
Yes, that's true.
So what has been, we talked about the difficulty parts, you know, I always try to get that one out of the way because, you know, that's something we don't like to talk about.
Yep.
But what has been the most rewarding part of homeschooling? I love talking to seasoned homeschoolers. You mentioned that your oldest is what, 28? I think I heard you mention. So you're definitely a seasoned homeschooler. And I love talking to seasoned homeschoolers so that they can kind of, especially we've had a lot of new homeschoolers come on board with homeschooling this past year because of the pandemic, because of some of the school things that are coming down the pipeline through the school educational system. And we have all these new homeschoolers, and it's nice to provide opportunities for them to hear from somebody who has done this a long time and kind of hear the rewarding side of homeschooling. Because a lot of people, when they first start off, they get overwhelmed. I mean, I got overwhelmed when I first started homeschooling.
Yeah,
It can
me
be
too.
overwhelming at times. So just, can you give us a little bit of encouragement? What has brought the rewarding parts of homeschooling?
Yeah, well, I would say all along was just having something that was challenging to my child, to my student, and, them being able to understand it and really get it, and, start to read and start to understand, or be able to do some of the schoolwork on their own because they could follow through with the directions. So that was definitely something all along that I enjoyed, seeing them learn firsthand. Yeah, as far as being a seasoned homeschooler, then, just being able to have my children say to me now, "Oh, I'm so glad you homeschooled me." And also just have them actually, yes, be able to finish high school, go to college or get a job and actually be productive. And, as like I said, 3 of them are married, so in their families, and that's definitely very rewarding, and definitely a longer term reward than just the everyday.
So have some grandchildren then.
I have one. Yeah, we have one grandchild.
Oh, awesome.
What I have seen is the children like to be homeschooled and are thankful they are. And also they seem to be working and able to get a job and do well and go on to college. And I'm very thankful for their abilities. So
they definitely seem to be more prepared for life in general.
They definitely do.
And so there's a lot of less surprises for them when they become adults. So you have older children, and you mentioned that you have one grandchild now. Are your older kids, are any of your kids plan on homeschooling also?
Well, I was just discussing that, before we got on here, because I was like, well, I know my oldest daughter married someone that was also homeschooled, so I know they're considering homeschooling. And that, I said, that would be rewarding to me, which I know I'm not going to get involved in their husband and wife relationship.
Yeah.
They get to decide that together. But yeah, that would be, rewarding to me, to see my children, follow in that.
Yeah, 2nd generation homeschoolers, 3rd generation homeschoolers, and on down the line. I definitely am looking forward to that aspect. I hope some of my children also. They've all talked about it, but my oldest is 20, so she's not quite yet there to start a family of her own. And it's whoever she picks as a significant other, and what they decide for best for their family. But definitely, I can see your point. It's such a rewarding experience to see that they choose that also for their families. And you mentioned also how they've thanked you now coming down. I've had my oldest is 20, and the second one up is 17, and they both have expressed thanks to me that I've homeschooled them all along, and they've appreciated it. I mean, they've even been surprised when they've been into, like, my oldest 2 daughters have been into a public school setting with driver's ed, and they were shocked the kind of atmosphere and how the kids treated their teachers, and just the things that they saw. They're like, man, we are so thankful that you taught us respect and that you taught us, the better things of homeschooling. They just really appreciated that. So I definitely can agree with you there that those are definitely some rewarding experiences for sure. So moving on here, I'm an eclectic homeschooler, so I like to pick and choose different things. I don't stick with the box curriculum. I started off boxed wise. I start off with a box set because I was afraid that I was going to miss something. And I think all of us homeschoolers feel that way. We're like, okay, we're going to miss something. We're not going to be able to teach them something, and they're going to go and graduate, and they're going to be, and we're going to fail them or something. So that's how I started off with. But then I kind of boosted my confidence a little bit, and we kind of branched out, and we started picking different curriculum, and not necessarily the same publisher. And also each child is different too. So choosing curriculum, what you found? How do you choose your curriculum for your homeschooling?
Yeah, I do not tend to use all of one type or one publisher.
Mm-hmm.
I like to pick and choose. I think I know I started just by asking other people, what do you use? What do you like? you know, this person's having trouble start, you know, reading, you know, what do you like for that? And I do tend to sometimes like to stick with what I've started with, and then I had to learn, oh, that really isn't working. It's okay to change to something else.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's a
yeah,
tough thing to learn.
yeah, you know, and that the curriculum can be the problem. A lot of times it's not the curriculum that's the problem. It's more just the, motivation or the understanding or the age, if the child needs to grow up, you know, get a little older to understand a certain concept or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I talked to others and tried things. And if I didn't like them, then I didn't use them again. Or if I liked them, then I kept using them. So.
And it's probably changed for each child, hasn't it? Because I know with my experience that, you know, some curriculum is not just a one size fits all. And so I've had to actually use one type of curriculum for one child, and another child uses a completely separate curriculum because that's what they do better with.
Yeah, I have done that too.
Yeah. And I also liked how you mentioned how being willing to kind of break up with the curriculum, so to speak. They can realize that it can't be the curriculum problem. That is such a hard lesson to learn for several reasons. You know, as a homeschooling mom, you've invested into this curriculum. You've invested money into this curriculum. And it's just hard to think, oh, there's so much investment into this, but at the same time, realizing what's best for the child. And if they're not learning, and if it's causing aggravation, the best thing to do is to break up with it, so to speak. It's okay to not finish a curriculum and start something else, and being okay with that. That is such a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah.
As a mom, because you're pinching your pennies, and then at the same time, I've had it to where I've actually fallen in love with the curriculum myself and love the curriculum, and my kids hate it. And
Doesn't work.
and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work if the kids hate it and mom loves it.
Yeah.
Both have to love it.
Yeah.
So definitely some great things that we're learning as moms too. On, you know, moms learn in the home education journey too, not just kids. And, you know, and dads and families learn. That's the great thing about home education, is
And
that all families.
Yeah. And definitely, never mind. I lost my train of thought. So.
No problem. So we're talking about curriculum. The other kind of thing that we kind of hear a lot from, especially people that are thinking about homeschooling, is what do we say to the people who are the naysayers, the people who do not support us home educating our kids or responding negatively to us? How do we handle that situation?
Yeah, I would say thankfully, I did not receive a lot of negative comments from people, family or friends. So I'm very thankful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about that question. You know, I guess I would wonder why they're negative about it. So if it's for social reasons, you know, I know my older kids, they had a lot of cousins around. We had cousins over all the time. They had plenty of social interactions, and then with church activities and just with each other, because we did have 7 children.
Mm-hmm.
They just, you know, and a homeschool group, different types of homeschool groups I know that you can be in, but, you know, they did have the interaction. Yeah, if they are negative over academics, well, you know, there's so much to offer, you know, like we said, so many curriculums. And, you know, no curriculum is perfect. The public school curriculum isn't perfect either.
Mm-hmm.
As the children got older, you know, if there's something I didn't understand, I'd hope I could talk to somebody else that's good at that subject, or a tutor. Or in high school, my children usually took some college classes at a community college, and that helped with some of the subjects that I maybe wasn't as good at teaching. And most of all, this was the thought that I forgot earlier, is that I just always prayed that God would add the increase.
Yes.
So you know, that God would fill in the gaps. I know there's gaps, you know, I'm not perfect. My personality is, you know, whatever it is. And so, yeah, just really prayed a lot that God would just fill in the gaps. And that was comforting to me.
Mhm. I like how you mentioned that ultimately our homeschooling journey starts with God, and that needs to be our rock and our foundation that we place our kids on. Because, you know, you mentioned, you know, parents aren't perfect, and school teachers in public schools are not perfect, and children are not perfect. And, you know, we're all going to be making mistakes as we go along here, but and feeling and, you know, praying for that peace and that comfort that you only get from Christ, and to follow us on this journey. And, you know, and you mentioned earlier is finding additional resources too. It doesn't have to necessarily be all on your plate too. You can actually look out for those other resources. You mentioned college classes. For me, I do not do math. I don't. I take math up to about pre-algebra, and then I look at my husband and I say, "You are the math nerd in this family, and so here you go."
You're the
And he
turn.
gladly takes it over. So that's just for how it works in our family, is he handles the math when they get to high school. But, you know, there's other resources out there that, you know, you can find out if your child is struggling in a certain area, or if your child is fascinated about something or wants to learn about something. There's definitely many opportunities out there that we could find for our children.
Yes.
I just have one comment to make about public schools. I was brought up in the time when they had the Dick and Jane readers, and I
Yeah.
never learned to really love reading until I got into about the 6th grade, and the teacher actually read to us. And now a parent would be able to detect this a long time before then.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the public schools have some problems.
Yeah, there's
But
definitely some issues there. And I
that
love how
should-
you mentioned reading and how you started having a love for reading when your teacher was reading to you. Those are one of the
Yes.
things that I love doing with my kids, is we have family reading time in our homeschooling. And I just enjoy finding a good book and encouraging that with my kids. I have some boys that didn't enjoy reading when they first learned how to start reading. And it could have been some of the curriculum that we started with. But once we started taking more time and sitting down and having that family reading time and finding resources and finding books that they enjoy, they started picking up that love
makes
for reading.
a whole difference in
It is
public
definitely.
schools, and they're pushing one agenda on them. You know,
Mhm.
it's going to bore them to death or whatever, and it's going to ruin everything.
And
So
they also, yeah, I agree. And they have to teach one way. They can't teach
Right.
multiple ways. And
Right.
kids learn different ways. Not everybody's the same. It's not a cookie cutter, so to speak, classroom. I mean, everybody is different in that classroom. And you're going to have kids that exceed, and you're going to have kids that fall behind, because teachers can only teach on that one level. Whereas in homeschooling, even though we may be teaching more than one grade level, we can still tailor that teaching to each individual child. So definitely encourage. Thank you for those thoughts, Gary. I definitely appreciate that. So one last question we have here for you guys is, what would you tell any new homeschoolers, because we do have new homeschoolers that watch these videos. And so what would you encourage with any new homeschoolers that have just started this journey? Remember back when you first started. So what are some things that you would encourage us new homeschoolers with?
Yeah, find support, which I know Patch is, you know, being that to people. And there's many other homeschool groups that meet, you know, once a week, once a month, a lot of co-ops in this area. There's really a lot of options here. I know where I was at before was more rural area, and yeah, there wasn't the options that there is here. So find support, and find another mom to share with. And I'm sure that other probably homeschool mom needs to share with someone too. So I can't say I had one other homeschool mom I shared regularly with, but there were definitely a number of them that were special to me and, you know, gave me ideas when I was struggling. and be real. I just, at the Patch
Mhm.
Convention, I just listened to a talk on that and realized how really important that is. And I do feel like I'm more real now than I used to be. I mean, when I think back, how I struggled if I only was more real. But be real and know you can't do it all.
Mhm.
So, with your husband, sit down and say, what is our schedule? What can we do? What do we need to eliminate? The kids are not going to suffer from
Mhm.
eliminating some extra curricular or whatever items, at least for a time, because
Right.
there's so many seasons. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about this, but so many seasons of homeschooling. So different for me now with just one child or one or two,
Mhm.
compared to the intense years of just always somebody asking you a question and very full days. But yeah, God does provide. I can attest to that. You don't have to do each subject matter each year.
Mhm.
Maybe this is the year to do more science type things, maybe more history next year. Simplify it. Kids continue to learn without those basic subjects, as they play, as they interact, or, they
Yes,
continue to
life.
learn
Life is a big classroom.
Yeah. And, one thing that, of course, all the older mothers told me that just seemed like it would never happen is that it will pass. So I think that's related to the seasons of life. But yeah, it is a strange feeling to be like finishing up the school journey. And I want to be able to accept that. I want to be able to rejoice in that and not.
Mhm.
And I often pray, that God would not allow me, or that I would not allow myself to look back and say, well, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. And I really think that is something I have to be conscious of, because
Mhm.
I can beat myself up pretty much. So I do need to watch that. And I do pray that I will know I did the best I could at whatever stage that was. And God provided.
I love how you mentioned that, because I'm kind of like, I have 5 kids. My oldest is 20, my youngest is 5. So I'm actually starting all over with the youngest. But seeing, I'm at the end of my journey with one, almost 2 of mine now, and seeing, not living in regret and not beating myself up for that, because as moms, we can put so much pressure on ourselves. Oh, if only I would have done this differently, or if I would have done that differently, or I missed this or I missed that. And just realizing that God gave us the time and He gave us the skills and He gave us the opportunities to minister to our kids, and we did the best that we could. Yes, we make mistakes, but that's where God's grace comes into play. And just holding on to God's grace with that.
Yeah.
So definitely. And then you mentioned also not having to do all of the different curriculums every single year. I remember there was one year that I was so excited because I bought this brand new history curriculum at the Apache convention that I went to that year. And I was like, oh, we're going to start this curriculum and it's going to be the best year. And we got about 3 months into that curriculum. And every single day it was tears. And every single day it was like pulling my hair out. And finally I was like, you know what? We're not finishing it because it's not worth it to us. It's not worth it for me to mess up my relationships with my kids and have them hold some bitterness because I'm forcing something on them that they're just not really enjoying. And our school journey is supposed to be for them, something for them to enjoy. So definitely realizing your limits and then realizing to let go too. The times that you definitely need to let go, for sure. Well, I definitely enjoyed talking to you guys tonight. Definitely appreciate you guys opening up your home to me and finding out a little bit about your family. And as a recap for everyone out there who is watching, this is our April monthly family spotlight for Patch. And this is Marie and Gary Unsicker. They took the time out this month to talk to us. If you're interested in becoming a family spotlight member, you can Facebook message us, or you can send us an email, or you can send us an Instagram message. We would love to sit down and chat with you guys and find out a little bit about your homeschooling journey that you guys can share. Thanks again, Gary and Marie, for joining me tonight. We appreciate it.
Wish everyone the best.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay.